Hey guys, and thank you again for watching the Cry But Don't Quit show. We are here today with another episode with another successful woman that's coming on to share a personal challenge that we all can relate to that, threatens to derail our professional success, our hard-earned success. And before we get into our conversation, I want to invite you to visit us at crybutdon'tquit.com, to subscribe to the newsletter, and to have full access to what goes on behind the scenes and the conversation that comes after these episodes come out. Okay, would you like to introduce yourself and let them know what brought you here today?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Brianna Michael, and I've been an entrepreneur since forever I can remember, but entrepreneurship, leadership can be a lonely road. That's why it's so important to tap into coaches and, other successful women, because you need that support no matter where you're at on your journey. And, one of the questions that I have that I'm hoping you can share your technique with the audience and myself is that, on my road of entrepreneurship, there have been times where when I'm starting a new project or when I'm starting in a new industry that I know nothing about, one of the things that people don't realize is that success is 80% mindset and only 20% skill, which should actually be relieving for you, because you don't have to be the most talented, you don't have to be the prettiest, you don't have to be the most successful, but you do have to work on your mind. And so knowing that success is 80% mindset, a lot of times when we're trying something new, fear will try to talk us out of it. So when that happens, a lot of times fear can push us into a fight, flight, or freeze response. So I would love to know your tips for all of us. What's the quickest way to recognize that and push through it when it happens?
Absolutely. I think even to my own disdain, I used to not like people saying, India, that would have stopped me, and you're so awesome for that not stopping you. Like, I wasn't practicing anything. I was surviving, but it goes to your point of just how strong the mind is, that you can literally will yourself out of any circumstance and into success. With that, the actual intent, not when you are reacting or responding to something, but when you are actually planning and positioning yourself for success or keeping it, the actual intent is to become mindful of what are the stories, what are the beliefs, what are the limitations that you put on yourself, which is the entire industry of coaching to address limiting beliefs. But specifically speaking to mindfulness, which is something that changed my life, it is something that I did not, and most people don't know what is, and it's the ability to be present in the moment. We are so fixated on the future. We're so worried about dissecting the past and what came before that it really takes training and thoughtfulness to stop in present tense right now, today, in this moment, and ask yourself, how do you feel? Without judgment, without automatically labeling it as one of these million, different ailments, but to just say, this is how I'm feeling and this is why I feel that way. And if you can be honest without that being judgment, then you can do something about it. Practicing that alone doesn't change. It doesn't change whether or not you're going to go through fight, flight, or freeze. What it does is it gives you the preliminary base to know why you're going through fight, flight, or freeze. Are you going through this because is this a real moment of threat? Or is this associated with something in the past? Or have you always been this way? And now this is your work to plug that gap and fix it. The separation between being mindful of it and knowing what's causing it and knowing the stories behind it without any judgment, that sets the stage for what you do when you have now pinpointed whether or not it's fight, flight, or freeze, what's attributing to it, what environments you may altogether need to ultimately avoid, or when you are in them and you are experiencing a trigger in real time, what to do with actual skills that are designed to help alleviate the trigger and the reactiveness to it. For example, if you are someone that experiences flight like myself, I am a very fight. I am a fighter. That's literally the one that I always default to. Like everything feels like an attack. Being snappy, being aggressive, being assertive, like just immediately taking a stance of like, okay, where's the next punch coming? when you're experiencing that type of trigger, then what you can do to collect yourself that are skills. The first one is, it's not the same box breathing that you experience with flight, which is flight, you take a 4 count breath in, breathe out 4, and then hold it for 4. Okay, that's meant to bring you back present. In a different way, when you are in fight, then it's a quick 2 count, 2 in, and you breathe out. That's to really allow that aggression to be processed. It allows you to crush the endorphins and the insulin that is pumping through your veins to preparing you to start clawing at something. So when when you're in flight, something else that you can do is splash cold water on your face. The cold instantly, it brings you back to your right mind. Mm-hmm. Just to give you an example of some things that you can't just sit there and say. You can actually, if you're in fight, you can say, I'm in fight and I'm safe. And that just presence of mind will snap you out of it, or at least make you aware of it. So these are things that you have to accompany first with being present about it, then you're experiencing it. So it's happening. You've got to do something with it. And that's like the 1, 2, 3 of it. And it goes down the list. Same thing with fight and freeze. There's a list, and I'm going to share it with you guys, free downloadable PDF where there's a list of, you get to, like you said, putting it on sticky notes or visual aids, whatever you've got to do, because it is so crucial to your success. The relationships, the interfacing with so many different personality types, that there's really no way to avoid not dealing with that at some point if you're experiencing this physiological response to people's presence or environments that make you feel threatened or unsafe on a nervous system level. Before I ask you how that lands for you, how's it land for you guys? I'm curious to know. If you haven't already subscribed to our newsletter at crybutdon'tquit.com, that's where you can join the conversation, share your tidbits, get the free downloadable worksheet that's just going to give you some insight of what we're talking about today. But how does that land for you, Brianna? Have you had any success with that? What I shared earlier with you is that to even be having this conversation, this inner dialogue, to even be able to name it as one of those 3 things, and knowing that is just a reflection of how much self-investment you've done so that you can maintain your success. So have you had instances where you've done any of those and had some success with it, or is that still a work?
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is spot on, because the first step is awareness, because a lot of times you don't even realize it's happening. You don't even realize you're fighting back or that you're freezing. And everyone has something called a window of tolerance. And if you go hyper, you tend to fight back. If you go hypo, you tend to retreat or freeze. And I've gone to both extremes. So I'll either fight back or I freeze up. And when you're in that state, the creative brain is in the front of the cortex. And so when you're in a creative state, that's where, ideas happen. That's where you take action. That's where you're excited. But when you go into that response, that fight or freeze, it goes to the back of the brain with the amygdala. And so you have to make a conscious effort to pull yourself back into that creative state and push yourself back into your window of tolerance, which is where that decision making happens. And so for me, the quickest way to pull myself out is awareness. So awareness is always the first step to change. So, okay, I'm outside of my window of tolerance. Am I fighting back or am I freezing? Once you recognize that, we can use the tips that she just shared. For me, I've put, there's been times in my life where I Post-its all over my home with scriptures and, affirmations and positive statements to help bring myself back into awareness. And then also, the fastest way for me is to change your state. So change the situation, get outside, get some fresh air, go on a walk. All of these things are going to help bring you back into that mindfulness that you were talking about, where you can make better decisions and have rational thinking.
And it's a verb, guys. It's one of those things where you actually have to do it, not think about it, not talk about doing it, but doing it. You make me think of like what I've been doing recently, because you open the conversation with talking about how lonely you get to a certain point of success is, where there's proprietary information that you can't share. There's really nobody to talk to about it, because it's like, I know a ton of people, but are they like, are the relationships at a certain point where I want to be this vulnerable, or like, are they just, do I even want to change the dynamic of the relationship? And all of my relationships are pretty good, and they're where I want them to be. And I like the pace that they're growing at. And what I've done recently is sit with the discomfort of that feeling of, dang, I want to talk to somebody. This is going back full circle to mindfulness. I needed to be mindful of, why is there an impulse to instantly want to pick up the phone and call somebody and tell them, just run them down what yesterday looked like, and I wanted to just challenge myself with becoming a little bit more disciplined with that, and see what I could do differently. And what came from that was me, on a Friday night when I want to just blow off some steam, instead of me smoking cigars or drinking, whatever, I'm sitting at the lounge with my journal, writing, watching some football. And it felt great. It felt better than a drink. It felt better than a cigar. So however you need to practice mindfulness, it's just about being present, like just having that check-in. The end of the week, just imagine how many conversations you had this week, how many little slights you probably experienced, how many disappointments you're carrying because you didn't meet certain deadlines. Making it a habit on Friday just to leave that on paper, and then go into your weekend free, So it's been something amazing to alleviate that emotional luggage that we're carrying, and free up that emotional real estate so that you can create, you can problem solve, you can change the world with it, and you don't have to kind of be stuck in your head and second guessing yourself or allowing those emotions to govern you. So we are not the platform that does not want to talk about emotions. Literally cry, but don't quit. So you can have whatever emotions you need, but if it is derailing your success, then it's not serving you. And that's why we're here. So thank you again for watching. And please be sure to reach out if you're interested in being a guest on the show, or partnering with the show at crybutdon'tquit.com, or at any of our platforms at crybutdon'tquit. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.